Hello and welcome to 18WJTS in.form. We are happy once again to have in the studio Jan Dougan with the Purdue Extension. She is the Health and Human Sciences Educator for Purdue Extension. And Jan, I've been to one of your programs that you've done on electric pressure cookers, because that seems to be something people talk about now. And I was there with a bunch of ladies, one other guy, and we learned a lot. I think everybody there who's ever used a pressure cooker, the old kind, was just fascinated by what they learned. And we're going to do two shows because there's so much to cover. What are we going to cover in this show, and then we'll cover another show tomorrow night? Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about what the electric pressure cooker is and what you should consider if you're thinking about purchasing one. Okay, and then tomorrow night we're going to talk more about how they work and some of the foods that you can cook in them and some of the food safety cautions that I want people to be aware of. All right, excellent. Well, let's talk about an electric pressure cooker. What is it? So really what it is just like the old time pressure cookers that we used to use on the stovetop, it's now electric. And by being electric, now it has some more safety features in it. And so for those who, some people are really cautious about cooking under pressure and they hesitate to do it because they don't understand how it works, or they're concerned about an accident happening. These have so many safety features on it that it's less likely that you're going to have an accident using an electric pressure cooker unless you don't follow your directions. So it's really, really important to follow directions with the unit that you purchase. I never liked the pressure cooker because I had this fear of that pressure cooker exploding. Because I remember my mother used to always get really nervous when the kids would be around the stove and that little jiggler was jiggling. That if we knocked it off, it's going to explode. Right. And that's my memory of it. So this is much simpler, is it? It's very simple. In fact, most of them on the market today are programmable. So we're calling them the EPPC, the Electric Programmable Pressure Cooker. And a lot of people are saying, oh, you're talking about Instapots. Well, let's compare that to tissues. When you go to need tissue to blow your nose, you usually don't ask someone for a tissue, right, Bill? What do you ask for? You ask for a Kleenex. You do. So that brand has become the name for a tissue. And that's similar to Instapots. They're so popular, and that is a particular brand of electric programmable pressure cooker that people think that all of them are Instapots. But there are many, many brands that are available on the market. And if you're thinking about why would I want to purchase one of these to use, you want to think about how you would use it. So cooking in an electric pressure cooker is healthy. Because of the way that it cooks, it maintains a lot of the nutrients in the foods that we eat that we want. So it's a healthy option. It's also green because it uses less dishes. It's easier for cleanup. It uses less electricity than using a stove for cooking. So it's healthy, it's green, it can save you money because you can cook at home and you don't have to eat out, so you can save money that way. Those are just a few of the things that I can think of that is a good reason to think about buying one. But you need to think about, where am I going to put this thing? Because it's huge. It's a large, small appliance, and it takes counter space. So if you don't have some place to store it when you're not using it, where are you going to keep it? Are you okay with keeping it out on your counter or not? So you have to think about some of those things. And then when you go to look, there are so many brands available. You can do a search on the internet to find all the different brands, and then I would study them, because even within the brands there are so many different sizes. There's like a 4-quart size, which would be appropriate for a single person or maybe a family of 2. Then there's the 6-quart and the 8-quart size, which if you have a larger family or you're going to cook very often, then you want to consider one of the larger sizes. And these are all electricity based, but now you can program them. Correct. Is that important to look at for a feature? Sure. Or what should you look at? So you want to think about the different programs that are available and know that
on all of them, they're just times and pressure levels that are automatically programmed into the unit. You can look at your use care guide and you can figure out what those times are and what those pressures are, and whether it's high or low pressure, and then you can utilize like the rice setting to cook something else if your recipe calls for that pressure that the rice setting is on and that time that the rice setting works. So you might want to look for a unit that it has a manual button that you can override, and you can program the unit to cook however you want and at whatever pressure you want. Because, you know, it's easy when we say, okay, we're going to make stew, so let's just use the stew button, and then it's pre-programmed in there to cook, but you still might have to make some adjustments on the time, which you can add or subtract time. So, you know, it's just, how do you cook? How do you cook? And something to think about before buying one, do I want to take the time to learn a new method of cooking or preparing food, or am I happy with how I'm doing it? A lot of people want to have an electric pressure cooker to save time, and so that's another feature. It can save time, but some things take just as long to prepare in the electric pressure cooker as it did to prepare in an alternative way. So not everything is going to save you time, but for many things you can put it in and you can walk away from it. You don't want to leave home, but you could walk away from your kitchen and it'll count down the time before it's done.
I think I remember that, the old pressure cookers, you couldn't leave the kitchen.
That's
you
right.
had to stay right there.
That's right.
Yeah.
You had to stay there and you had to make sure everything was working properly. But this you can program and you can walk away. So that's a nice feature of the electric programmable pressure cookers.
Now, size to me is one thing to look at, and probably until you actually look at that size, you know, if you say a 4-quart as opposed to an 8-quart, you may not really realize the difference. You need to actually see it.
Right, because you want to think about what you're going to be cooking, how many people you're going to be feeding, and what capacity you really need in your cooker. And I know that I've been doing some programs around the county and working with the libraries, and I know one individual who came to the program had one that was coming the next day, and after the program she's like, oh my gosh, I ordered too small of one for our family. She wanted to try to save a little money, so she ordered the smaller size, but she realized when she actually saw it physically that it wasn't going to be large enough for the way she cooked for her family. So that is something to think about. In addition to the different program features that you have on these cookers, you also might want to consider what kind of finish you get in your inner pot. So you have an outer casing that a smaller pot sits in that you do the actual cooking in, okay? And those come with either a stainless steel finish inside or a non-stick finish inside, and they both work wonderfully. They both have great features, but how do you cook? So one of the things is, if you want easy cleanup, then the non-stick finish is great, but you can use these cookers to brown. If you're doing meat, let's say you're doing a roast, you can brown the roast inside the cooker in one pan, and then after you've sauteed or browned that roast, then you can add your other ingredients and put the lid on, and you can set it to pressure cook. So you're only using one pot. That's saving you some time and some energy, but to get that really nice brown finish that we like on a roast, a stainless steel finish is going to give you a crustier, nicer brown than a non-stick finish. So again, how do you cook?
And aside from that, if it's stainless steel, is that harder to clean than non-stick?
No, well, it depends upon what you use. A non-stick finish, usually you can just use a dish rag to clean it. But stainless steel, if you get some residue on it that's a little harder to get out, you have to scrub it a little bit more. But you can use product that's recommended in your care use guide to get that out easily. So, you might have to put a little bit more elbow grease in it, but it does clean up well.
This may sound like a weird question to you, but I remember when these first came out, and my wife and I were in a store, and I said, oh, look, they got different kinds of crock pots, not realizing it's an electric pressure cooker, which is different than a crock pot.
And crock pot is a slow cooker. Crock-Pot is the
Okay,
brand
yes.
name. Again, one of those that has taken over, and we think of a slow cooker, we think Crock-Pot, where there's lots of different brands of slow cookers. But you know, that's the beauty of the electric pressure cooker. It can be a slow cooker, so it can be a ricer, it can be a slow cooker, and it is a pressure cooker. So some of those appliances that you have, you could get rid of and just have this one unit that would do all those different functions and all those different jobs. So, you know, it's really interesting talking with people about electric pressure cookers and why they're interested in them. And for some, it's just a fad. For some, they really want an opportunity to try something new, to do something. For some, they really like the way food tastes when it was pressure cooked in the olden days when we did it on the stovetop. And so that's why they're interested in purchasing one. Some people are telling me they're a great gift. So they've been gifted this item and they don't know what to do with it. So, you know, if you're listening and you're interested in learning more about electric pressure cookers, we're doing different classes around the county, or if you have a group or an organization, probably more likely a women's group or organization, although I know you cook a lot,
yeah,
Bill, and you were interested in coming to the program, that you can call Purdue Extension and we will be glad to partner with you and provide some education on electric pressure cookers.
Okay, now there is more to know about electric pressure cookers, and we're going
Yes.
to do that in our next show.
Yes, there's a lot more to know.
But you can call Jan in the meantime, but to get more information, or maybe a week or so from now if you see it. But Jan, we're going to talk tomorrow then about how to use a pressure cooker and
Yes.
some different recipes.
Yes, how it works, some ideas, some foods you can cook in it, and some food safety tips.
Okay, that's tomorrow on WJTS Inform. Our guest has been Jan Dougan. She is the Health and Human Sciences Educator with Purdue Extension of Du Bois County. Tomorrow is, I don't know if you'd call it part 2, but we're going to talk more about electric pressure cookers here on 18 WJTS Inform.